Well, today I want to introduce a tool or a rule that has, actually, I've never heard of this before, but in thinking about it, I think it can be super helpful in terms of overcoming sort of cyclical porn behaviors and patterns. And I learned it from the most unlikeliest of sources. So stay tuned. I'd love to share it with you. Welcome aboard.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, before I share this tool or rule with you, let me just say this. Actually, I think it's my wife said recently, doesn't it ever get old always talking and working with guys? Like, do you ever get bored or, something along those lines? And you know what? Let me just say, it doesn't. I love to connect with guys. I guess it's because I can so identify for years and years and years. I was caught in these patterns, the despair, the hopelessness, not knowing who to talk to, where to turn. And when guys get a hold of me and then we connect for a Zoom call, it's always exciting to, be able to talk to guys and just say, this is kind of where I was at. And, I hear where you're at, but I can help you get to a new place. And, it doesn't get old because I guess I can so easily identify it. If I didn't have people who helped me, who in one sense took their brand new pickup trucks and hooked up a tow line and pulled me out of the muck, I'd still be stuck. So anyways, I love to connect with guys. If you want to connect with me, my email is simple. It's bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. And it could be about finding information about our 52-week video course. It could be about joining one of our traction groups. We're always starting new groups. Or it could be about just me doing some individual coaching with you. Again, I'd love to reach out. I'm working with guys from, I think I've got North America, South America, Europe, Australia. I just added the Middle East. Nobody from Asia yet. So if you're from Asia, you can be the first one. So anyways, love to hear from you. Well, let me just say this. It's always cool when you learn things from places you don't expect to. And the rule I want to share with you, or the tool, is called the 20-second rule. I'd never heard of this before. And again, where I picked it up was the most unlikeliest of sources. And recently I have been playing with this idea, and I kind of try ideas on and go, in a few years, my wife would like to step away from teaching and I'd like to slow down a bit and, what would we want to do? And so one of the things we've been playing with is the whole idea of picking up a van and doing a van conversion. That's where you take a van, like a Ford Transit van or a Type C small RV, but a van conversion is where you actually take a van, like the vans you see, the Amazon Prime vans around, and you turn it into a bit of a living space. There was a movie, I think it won Best Picture a few years ago, is about nomadic van life. And so I've just been playing with this idea of hitting the road. You wouldn't have to pay for hotels. You'd have this compact little moving home. I think it's a cool idea. I don't know if I want to do it, but I've been watching some videos about it. So again, that's kind of why I'm watching van conversion videos. Now, when I saw this one video and it said this, 10 things I regret about my van conversion. Well, you might think, well, I would regret ever living in a van with my partner, which might be true. It might be too small, but it caught in my eye. So I watched it And this is what the gal said who, as part of it, and I wrote it down because I'm going, oh, that is really interesting. Here's what she said, quote, "Normally I enjoy cooking, but I hate cooking in my van. I couldn't figure out why until I learned that it is a hassle to cook. I have to take out my Coleman stove and I have to hook it up to my propane tank, and the whole process takes me like over 40 seconds. She goes on. She says, "Now you might not think that's a long time, but studies have shown that if you want to ensure that something is not a regular part of your life, or you want to get rid of a bad habit, make it take more than 40 seconds to prepare. Once again, you are far less likely to do something that takes 40 seconds than something that only takes 20 seconds. So she said, as a result of that 40-second prep time, I don't cook as much as I should." Now, I immediately saw a connection with something that, is closer to my area of interest, recovery. And so first of all, I had to check it out. And I typed in the 20-second rule, and sure enough, it's a big deal. There's been a lot of studies which back it up. So what is the 20-second rule? This is what it is. The initiation of any task is the most decisive part of it, where you take the decision to do it or not. If you make this process longer than 20 seconds, you are more likely not to do it. Conversely, if you want to increase the likelihood of practicing a good habit, make an activity something that you can initiate within 20 seconds. And then there's this guy, this Harvard happiness expert. His name is Sean Achor, and he recounts the story of how moving his guitar to the living room increased how often he practiced. Similar idea, right? So, want to stop a bad habit? Increase the time it takes to initiate it by 20 seconds. In other words, 20 plus 20 equals 40 seconds, right? I told you I taught math, so I think I know that. So, let's begin to unpackage this and how I think this can be so helpful for us. If you think of a habit, we often think of a habit in its entirety. For example, looking at porn. But all habits are comprised of multiple steps, tiny actions required to necessitate it, and oftentimes, to follow it through. There's often a number of little steps. A couple of previous videos, I introduced the stopwatch cycle, and I spoke about how it goes from obsession to a process then of ritualized pursuing. So, in this Harvard dude's example, he realized that having to remove his guitar from his closet, if he wanted to practice his guitar, it increased the effort that he needed to practice, even if that effort only cost him an extra 20 seconds. Those 20 seconds meant the difference between doing his habit and not doing his habit. So he came to the resolution, put his guitar in the center of his apartment, and guess what happened? He practiced his guitar for 21 days straight without exception. So, your mind might be turning here and you're going, okay, so first of all, I can see how the 20-second rule could be used to build new, empowering habits. But it also could be an ally or a help or tool to break the automatic cycle of negative habits as well. For example, Achor's next experiment was to replace watching television when he returned home from work with reading and writing a book. So he was kind of frustrated that he would come home from work and plop himself down in front of the TV, and before you know it, an hour or 2 hours were gone, and he felt like, I just felt like I've wasted a productive part of my day. So what did he do? This time he took the batteries out of his remote and moved the batteries to another room. You guessed it, 20 seconds away. And here were his findings. He said, the next few nights when I got home from work, I plopped down on the couch, pressed the on button on the remote, usually repeatedly, forgetting that I had moved the batteries. Then, frustrated, I thought to myself, I hate that I do these experiments. But sure enough, the energy and effort required to retrieve the batteries or even walk across the room and turn the TV on manually was enough to do the trick. I would pick up my book instead. So, let's just go back and summarize. This is the rule of thumb. You need to decrease the activation energy that is necessary to do your wanted positive habits. You need to increase the activation energy if you want to break negative habits. So let's flesh this out a little bit more on the positive side. Let's say you want to create a new habit. Then you have to find ways to decrease the activation energy to implement it. In a nutshell, the less time it takes to get it done, ideally 20 seconds or less, the more likely you are to do it. So here's a few examples that he gave. Put your gym clothes right by your bed, so when you wake up, you just put on your gym clothes right at the beginning to do your workout. Keep a water bottle with you at all times to ensure you drink more. Keep the water bottle at your desk, so you just automatically drink from the water bottle. You don't have to go down to the water cooler. We already heard about keep your guitar in the living room if you want to practice more. Keep your vitamins, or as the British would say, your vitamins, right next to your bed with a glass of water so you don't forget to take them in the morning. All right, those are just some examples. And, all it takes is some creativity. I'm actually have told myself, I'll let you know how this goes. Today is the first day in probably 10 years where I have purposed to begin to start weight training. Now I got to figure this out, and I got to do some really easy steps to lower the activation energy. I want to do it 3 times a week. I already went and bought a 10 pass for drop-ins, and so I've done that. I've got a workout app, so I'm thinking about how to apply this here. So we'll see. I'll have to tell you next week if I already feel more buff or not. All right, so that's for positive habits. Now the same can be said, just going to take that in reverse if you want to reverse or stop bad habits. You need now to increase the activation energy for those habits you want to avoid. If you increase the activation energy, you're less, let's say that again, if you increase the activation energy, then you're less likely to do them. Don't keep sweets in the house if you want to lose weight. Which reminds me, we have about 3 bags of chips left over from the Super Bowl party. And whenever I see a full bag of chips, I kind of feel responsible to eat them. So after I get off this podcast, I am going to throw away those chips. Now I know that my wife's going to ask, just out of curiosity, where did all those chips go? So anyways, so don't keep sweets in the house if you want to lose weight. We already talked about, for example, take the batteries out of the remote control. If you want to just stop, turning the TV on automatically. Let's apply this to porn, for example. And I'm sure that you've already started ways of looking at this. So one of the things oftentimes guys have noticed, the vast majority of times where guys act out, it's often by impulse. Things that get them into trouble within 20 seconds. So what am I talking about? Well, you're on a website and, and all of a sudden you see a clickbait, top 10 revealing, dresses from the Oscars. And you're going, well, I like the Oscars. The Oscars are coming up. I really should check that out. And within 20 seconds, you are clicking through the top, so-and-so revealing dresses, or you won't believe what so-and-so looks like. You see the impulse, the idea. It's within 20 seconds. And so you often will find yourself beginning that process without having arrested that just natural impulse. Here's another example. There are some websites that I go on to order things. But I've also noticed when I'm on those websites that I tend to want to look for other things, other more erotic things. And I'm going, well, that's not a good thing. So what I did is I've got covenant eyes, so I just put those sites on my block list. And if I ever get to the point where I need to order some things, we just take it off the block list. I go ahead and order whatever I need to order, and it goes back on the block list. I can still use those sites to order things, but I don't end up just doing something on impulse anymore because it takes me more than 20 seconds. All right, does that make sense? That's why some people take their YouTube app off their phone. They block it. Other people put time things on it. So YouTube Shorts are gone from my, for example. Those kinds of things you do to go, okay, I want to increase the activation energy. Now, some people are saying, whoa, hold on, Vern. I sometimes get to a point where I am just dogged that I'm going to act out. How does this affect that? And my answer is doesn't. I am talking about removing, and this is just part of a broader sense of being strategic. I'm removing all of those things, taking advantage of the 20-second rule to remove those impulse activities that start you down the rabbit hole. Now, and also it has to do with the idea, if you have to do quite an involved series of steps to act out, to begin to look at porn, then what it does is it gives you time. It gives time friction for what I call your sober second thought. Your better version of yourself. The prompting of God in terms of if you're from a religious tradition, right? Whatever it is, it slows the process down. 20-second rule. So here's another one. I talked a little bit about this on the when I talked about a smartphone. Instead of having your phone beside your bed at night, what happens is you can't sleep, or you wake up and and you reach over, you pick up your phone up, and that's within 20 seconds, right? It just becomes automatic. And now you're on your phone. Of course, it's messing with your brain waves, so it's going to probably keep you from sleeping or falling back to sleep or worse, right? So take your phone, leave it in the kitchen. I always love the great pushback. Yeah, but I need it for my alarm clock. And I say, go down, buy an alarm clock. Or another one, my favorite, a smart recovery guy that I heard of is he bought a baby monitor. And the baby monitor, he puts the baby monitor on, he puts it in the kitchen, right next to his phone. So if the phone goes off, he'll hear it on the baby monitor, right? Again, recovery stuff, a lot of it, I mean, there's other stuff about, unmet needs and all that. But I just say to start out, a lot of it is super practical. Your impulses are getting in the way of you growing into the man that you want to be. Make your impulses work in your favor. It's not rocket science. So I hope that gets you thinking and scheming in a good way towards a better result in your future. We'll see you next time.